So if you're building something up and it's becoming greater in value, you're building up wealth for yourself, right? Ownership mentality, I think, is a good thing to have, and I think everybody has control over, even if you don't necessarily own something or can't necessarily own something that easily. I think that ownership mentality makes the best type of team member. So somebody who has that passion to do it well just because they want to do it well, because they believe they should, not just because they have to, or it's not just a job. Like they really want it. They want to be what they create. They want it to be good for themselves, not even if they own it. But that kind of a mentality, I think, gets you a long ways. Hey everybody, my name is Erik Johnson, owner of J2 Marketing, and you're watching the What's Your Hustle podcast.
What's your hustle? What do you do? Here to bring money and attention to you. A lot of people want to know, you gotta give them the truth. Here to run the numbers up, we about to go through the roof. What's your hustle? What's your hustle? Here to talk about your grind, how you spend your time. We done brought you to the show, you gotta speak what's on your mind. What's your hustle? What's your hustle? What's your hustle? What's your hustle?
Yo, welcome back to another episode of What's Your Hustle podcast. And today we have a special guest, Erik, and he is the founder and I would say part owner, co-owner of J2 Marketing. Principal owner of J2 Marketing, and he owns and other businesses as well. He's a serial entrepreneur like myself. I went into the office a couple weeks ago to have a meeting with his pops, and I was in podcast mode and I kind of asked him some questions, but he was at the same time, he was moving, and I said, you know what? Let me just get you on the podcast. And so that's why we have him today, y'all. He's a great guy, and we gonna learn together about Erik. So we just gonna hop right into it. So Erik, how's your week been so far?
Better than I deserve.
Better than you deserve. Well, that's what's up, brother. What's some of the things that you've been working on lately?
I've been working on, it's the beginning of the year, so it's always year-end stuff to deal with all the different businesses. Maybe the not so fun part of entrepreneurship is the beginning of the year. But yeah, we're working on a renovation at the garage arcade bar. We're starting that in February, and working on a couple other businesses, just getting them up and going.
So how many businesses do you have?
I get, everyone's got the little side hustle or this or that or things that are in the pipe, but operating business is about 5.
About 5. You said that like just 5. Like so what are the 5 businesses?
So like J2 is my core business, I guess you could say, my primary business that I've been doing for about 12 years.
Okay.
And I've got some real estate rentals. That's a business, commercial and residential rentals. And we got the garage arcade bar, which we started 2.5 years ago. We opened that up. I've got a staffing and recruiting company that grabs high-level talent that works remote out of Tunisia, Africa. Mm-hmm. So we've got an office in Tunisia, about 4,000 square foot office over there that houses a bunch of people that work for American companies over here on the tech side.
Wow.
And then a newer one called Noble Endeavors Fund, which is a angel investment group.
Wow. This is the first time I ever met an angel investor group situation. So I heard about it.
That's this one, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm feeling that. So how did you come up with all of these? Like, how does that work? Like, what? That's crazy. Five businesses, and they all operating. Mm-hmm. And then you say you have one in what part of Africa?
Tunisia,
Africa.
So very, very northern part, just below Italy.
Just below Italy. Okay.
Yeah, on the Mediterranean.
So
place.
How did you come up with this?
Yeah, I don't think anybody plans. I don't think 5 years ago, most of all these are less than 5 years old other than my main business. I don't think 5 years ago I planned any of these. So A lot of it is just, they call it entrepreneurial luck, but you know the definition of entrepreneurial luck? When preparation meets opportunity.
Got you.
That's entrepreneurial luck. So just being prepared and being connected in the right ways and knowing the right people and just finding ways to bring value to other people. There'll be opportunities for that if you're ready for it. I think the garage spawned out of an opportunity where we moved J2 into this new building and we had space. We had a whole other half of the building we needed to do something with. We were just going to rent it out, and we thought, well, I've seen this concept. I think it's cool. I like it personally, and we don't have one here in South Bend, so that's kind of how that spawned out, and we said, let's do it. And then the Tunisia business, the staffing recruiting company, that spawned out of the pandemic where everybody went remote. Okay. And I was struggling to find people to work at J2 to hire. A lot of issues with hiring people these days. Everyone is. So we were looking for a specific position we couldn't fill. And I've got a friend of mine who lives there, and he had some connections with some people. And we're like, hey, well, why don't we just set up a business entity and make it kind of more of a transactional thing? And then we did that, and we realized, hey, this is a great opportunity for a lot of other people. And then suddenly lots of Tunisians were pouring in saying, hey, I'd love to work for an American company. And a lot of these companies that I'm connected with were like, hey, I could use some people. So made the connection there. So it's just finding value and giving it to the right people.
Finding
value opportunities.
And how do you find value opportunities?
I think it's just for entrepreneurial type people, it's really a mindset. Like you're just always seeing it something and thinking, making connections between 2 points. So the Noble Endeavors Fund as an angel investment group, again, is finding two different networks that I have, and we just put them together. And so we took our connection with investors, with just business colleagues in the area who all have a little bit of money to throw at some startups. Not a lot, but just a little bit to throw at some startups. And then our startup connection through Notre Dame and some other avenues through J2 and marketing. We've got a lot of connections with startups that we help with marketing. And so they said, hey, I need funding too. And I said, hey, I know a lot of people who'd be willing to throw a few bucks at some business opportunities. But then there wasn't a whole lot of value in bringing 10 or 15 people to a startup and then having to handle and deal with all those people. So they said, hey, we just want to talk to one person. So we all collectively pool our money together when we see a good opportunity, and then we come in as one large group. So that's kind of the idea with that. So it's just finding two different groups of people who had a need, and we just married them together.
And that's all value opportunity is.
Yep.
Simple as that.
Yep.
So how does one have to... Do you think you have to be born with that gift as far as entrepreneurship to recognize that, or that can be something that's taught? I
think you can learn just about anything. I think some people have an advantage in being born with a certain mentality, or at least just raised in that way to have a certain mentality. But I think you can learn anything. Great musicians may not have been born as great musicians, but they can become great, right? Nobody was born an all-star basketball player.
Right.
But they can become that way, and maybe they have a bent towards that, right? And maybe the best of the best kind of have to have that bent in order to reach the top tier levels. But I think you can train yourself to think in those ways if you just surround. You're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with, and so if you just surround yourself with people that think that way, you're going to start thinking that way, and you start seeing stuff differently.
How can one position themselves to be around other people that's essentially greater or more successful than they are?
I think just being intentional. I think a lot of people would not put a lot of intentional effort into the relationships they have. They just kind of have what they have, and they just live with what they've got, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people need to realize that there are some relationships that are bringing the average way down and maybe aren't the best for them. And so is there ways you can fill your life with, people and relationships? I think relationships is one of the number one keys to success with any entrepreneur, is your connections and who you know. If you're living isolated and you don't know anybody and you have no connections, I don't care how good your ideas are or how good your business is, it's hard to succeed.
Yeah.
But you can take an average idea or average value and go a long way if you've got a lot of the right connections, which is just relationship building.
It's relationship building.
So
Okay.
and it's doing a lot of what you're doing, where you're meeting with different people, you're talking to mentors, you're interviewing people, like you're building relationships, and so it's like you continually deposit. Think of it like a relational bank accounts. You continually make value deposits into people's lives, then eventually you get to make a withdrawal in a way that might help you, with like a connection or opportunity, because you've been of value to other people. So it's like relational equity.
So how can one like let's say like I never met you, I didn't know you, and I wanted to get to know you, but I don't really have like much to offer. Maybe I don't see that I have much to offer. Like I just know that you would be more successful. I need to be around you. But
Right.
But then how does that work in a situation like that?
I think something that anybody can do is just be extremely interested in what other people are doing. Especially business owners, entrepreneurs, they feel very isolated.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just be excited and excitable and encouraging whenever you see somebody with you see me or something like that, and you come up and say, hey, I love to see what you do. I love to watch what you're doing. Love your bit, just like words of encouragement to entrepreneurs is like, oh, thanks. You noticed me. Like you remember me. Like that's just a relational, valuable thing to do. And then as you build different relationships by just seeing people somewhat regularly, then you can start making those connections, just free, valuable connections. So like, if you say, hey, have you met, if you meet somebody out there who's, maybe wanting marketing services, right? You'd be like, hey, I know J2, they do a great job. Let me make that connection. Suddenly you just added value to me and to them. And that's free stuff. Anybody can do that.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. I feel like sometimes, like in the beginning and starting off in your beginning phase as an entrepreneur, you kind of, it's particularly with the video production, photography, right? You kind of look at people as like your competition, and then you tend not to share leads or whatnot.
Sure.
But I've learned like you can't be like that, and I really learned that from watching your father, because I have a bunch of conversations with your father. He'd be like, you should meet such and such, and I can connect you. And then I start saying, okay, I need to be a connector as well, and that's kind of how you build that network, being a connector.
You build your circle of influence, and then the more you connect other people, the bigger your circle of influence, the bigger network you have of connections, the more opportunities that are just gonna pop up, and you'll see them. So Hugh is the master connector. He is like, that's literally all he does all day.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, I feel like I'm a lot like him, like, cause he's just like this visionary, and I'm like, and at first I kind of didn't like that part about me. Like I thought, not to say it was something wrong, but it's like I always had vision. I would always dream big. But when I got around your father, I was like, oh wow, he's just like me. And that just did something to me, like to let me know that we are the
those
same.
People exist.
Yeah. So man, it's nothing like that, man.
Yeah, and it's hard being a visionary entrepreneur, and also having to do all the details yourself, because like you probably would thrive in just pure vision. Hugh gets to spend a lot of time in just being a visionary, and he didn't have to do a whole lot of implementation at this point because of the team that we built up.
Right.
And so it's hard for someone like you to be a visionary and have to be an implementer as well, which is where I started as well. So.
But that's the beauty of getting mentors and being around people such as yourself. Then you start realizing the beauty and power of hiring or having a team. And so it's like, I can't do everything, by myself, and I'm weak in certain areas.
Right.
So I have to find people that's stronger in those areas to cover, my weakness. And there's nothing wrong with that. You should acknowledge your weakness.
Oh yeah.
That acknowledging your weakness is actually a strength. But
right.
People don't realize that.
Being aware of it, self-awareness.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I failed English in college. I mastered everything math related, finance related. That was my degree, finance and entrepreneurship.
Nice.
And I failed English in freshman year of college. I hate it.
Wow.
I'm so bad at it.
Wow.
Traditional writing, I'm a professional email writer at this point. That's about it. That was our first hire. Was a writer.
Look, that I suck at writing. Like I hate it. So I need a copywriter. Where's the copywriter? I need me a copywriter. Like I'm not the best with that, and that's cool. And you have people whose strong suit is communication. Yeah. In the Bible book of Proverbs, it's talking about if you are skilled in the matter, you will succeed. And so, like when you read the Bible, and the king, every time that they called for somebody, they only called the people that were skilled. They never called for mediocre. They never called for good people. They never called for decent people. They always called for people that's skilled. So only the best know. So you got to be skilled.
Like that, yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that. So I want the best of the best to help me
focus on what you're the best at and try and elevate that to a level that you're in the 1% of that skill. If everybody did that, we'd be in a better world, but it's tough to do.
I mean, when I look at like a Sam Walton, or I don't know, like a Jeff Bezos, or like millionaires, billionaires, like none of those guys is working by themselves. You initially may start off with like one or a few people, but in order to grow like a truly, truly successful company, you gotta have a bunch of people. And I mean, obviously, from what you're telling me, from having the 5 businesses and so forth, it's a big team. You can't do it by yourself, because if you did, like, you dropped the ball somewhere. Yeah,
no, I think between all the companies, we've got 36, 37 people, something like that.
Wow, see. I like to so often say, Jesus had a team. Like the Bible speaks a lot about
12-to-1 ratio. There you go.
See, so a bare minimum. Look, you need about that much on your team. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. So the Bible is filled with all sorts of like entrepreneurships and parables and stuff. So I really just love it. I really just get a kick out of that.
Yeah. Very cool.
So what's some of the books that you have read like through your lifetime that you really attributed like your success to?
Well, I'd start with the one you've been reading. The Bible's a good place to start for sure.
Right.
I think a lot of my foundation's built on that, so I would give that one probably the most credit. I don't read a ton of books. Again, I was so bad at English, and reading is kind of like almost in tandem with that for me, but I'm just a slow reader, I guess. I think I learn information differently, better. Some of the books I've read, though, outside the Bible would be Untitled Leadership by Dave Ramsey.
Okay.
That's a real good one. One I'm reading right now, actually, because just the phase of life that I'm in with the team and the size of teams that I have is it's called Herding Tigers. So it's about like how do you best, for lack of better terms, manage a team of high performers and people that that could be very successful. How do you empower them and be a good leader in a creative world? So
wow,
that's good.
Yeah,
I'm about halfway through that one right now. So
hey, I'm definitely gonna go cop that book. I love asking entrepreneurs these questions. I promise you, if I showed you my phone, my library's looking a little light over there because I've been taking a lot of books home. Yeah, but trust and believe, I'm going to grab that one. That definitely sounds like a good title. Y'all should too.
What's that?
I was saying y'all should too. The people out there, y'all need to go and grab that book.
Yeah.
I
read a lot of articles, listen to a lot of podcasts though, so that's also, I think podcasts are, for me, one of the best ways to learn when I'm commuting and doing, sitting there working on other stuff. I'll listen to podcasts rather than music sometimes and just absorb information that way.
So what's some of the podcasts that you like besides mine?
That's a good question. I listen to a lot of podcasts related to like marketing agency world, because that's about half of what I do at this point.
Well, like name some, because I didn't even know that they had podcasts like that.
Well, there's an Entree Leadership podcast by Dave Ramsey's team. That's a really good one. It's a little more broadly business related, like kind of all over, not necessarily just specific to agencies. There's Two Bobs. It's an interesting one. Two Bobs is mainly about marketing agencies. That's what I've been doing a lot of listening to recently. But yeah, And just anyone, similar to yourself that's got interesting stories from interesting people in the business world.
Gotcha. So to go back a little bit, you said that you learn a little differently. So how would you say, like, define that or break that down? Like, how would you learn? Did you mean like you read just slow and process the information different?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy reading when I can, but then I don't feel like I remember a lot of the information long term. So I read like a whole book, there's gobs of good information in there, but maybe I only got like a nugget out of it. So there's actually this guy named Sean Whalen that I follow who talked about how he reads books, and I thought that as a really good option for me is to just start reading the book, and as soon as you get a real good nugget of information, just stop reading, take that one nugget, and try and implement it tomorrow, and try and like actually act on it. And then once you've done that, then go back to reading, find your next nugget, rather than seeing 10 nuggets of information while I'm reading a book and being like, and do nothing about any of them, right?
Right.
So yeah, I enjoy the, I guess, self-help type books for lack of better terms for that category, I guess.
It's I don't even know the title or the person who wrote the book, but it's a book and it's basically with like stick figures or something. Like the guy just uses stick figures to like express. You ever heard of that? Know what I'm talking about?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm gonna have to find that. Find out what that book is and get it for you. I think you may like it. It's interesting. So
cool.
I can't think of the name of it. I recently just found out about it from this course that I was taking, and I really enjoyed like the illustrations. And basically, they was just saying like a lot of times we just think that the only form of communication is like just like verbal or like written, but it's like really through like little drawings and like doodles and stuff. And the guy was saying like basically like he made millions just off like just drawing stuff on the board. So
wow.
It's interesting. Needless to say, I just leave it at that.
Yeah, very cool.
But so you got J2 Marketing and it started 12 years ago. So walk me back through that. Like, what made you wanted to start J2 Marketing?
I think with any of the businesses, they're never, none of them are necessarily like things I'm like, I've always wanted to do this. It's like always been something I want to do. I enjoy the process of starting companies, figuring out how to make them operationally work and get them going. I'm not a huge manager type of guy, so once I get it up and going and running and financially stable, like, okay, now I'm going to find someone who's better than me at continuing management ongoing. So what got J2 started, and what I was going to say with a lot of them, what got a lot of them started was really just the opportunity that kind of arose, and we thought, hey, let's do something.
When you say arose, like you mean like a problem popped up?
Yeah, just an opportunity. So the way J2 started was 2009, right at the end of 2009, so right in the middle of the Great Recession of our day. A lot of our family that we knew and friends that we knew were losing their jobs left and right. I mean, it was a really bad time economically. So a lot of people, when that happens economically, a lot of people start businesses, start little side hustles, things they could do to help supplement income, or just justifies them saying, hey, I've always wanted to do this. Now I got laid off, so now I'm going to go do it, right? So we had a lot of people that we knew that were doing that, and we thought, we had a couple people who thought, hey, let's make a website, right, that you could list your services on. And so it was actually my brother and I who started it, hence the J2. Yeah, okay. And that's how it started. We made a website. We've just figured it out. We had no idea. We had no training. We had no background in it. I'm still in college at the time. My brother's working full-time, landscape job. And we were like, hey, let's just do that. So we did that, made a logo, and then just kind of spawned from someone else like, hey, could you do that for me? Hey, while you're at it, could you do like a little video? Made a video on my iPhone 5. And
wow.
Never done it before, but I'm like, we'll figure it out, right? We'll just do something, make it worth your while, and it was cheap. So, ironically, we started a marketing company in the worst economic time you possibly could. However, everyone was firing their really expensive agencies and hiring some guys who only kind of knew what they were doing for really cheap, which was us. So they had to go a little cheaper, I think, and that gave us an opportunity to work with some businesses on a lot more affordable level. So
Wow. So you started out working, taking like lower end jobs, needless to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I made a pretty nice website for like $400.
Wow.
So
what what's the most money you've charged like for a website, or like if somebody wanted a website traditionally from like a marketing company, what would they probably pay for something?
That varies greatly. So if you're looking at just like a brochure type of website where it's just like information, nothing functionally unique. You can start as low as free by going to like places like Wix or things like that if you really need to. A lot of people do that. If you're gonna hire out to like a freelance or an agency, you're probably gonna start around like $1,000, go up to somewhere around 5,000 depending on the quality, the amount of design work, the amount of customization, stuff like that. And then if you get into the e-commerce world or functionality, something with like user login and all that kind of stuff, you're probably three to whatever, unlimited at that point. So
wow. So
I think the larger end of the websites we've done is about 50,000.
You said 50?
Yeah.
Wow. So he went from $400 website to $50,000 website. That's a big jump. Yeah. I'm proud of that. I'm glad to hear that. That gives me encouragement. I hope that gives the people out there some encouragement as well. If you're a freelancer starting now, you're like, hey, I'm only charging a couple $400 for a website. We have Erik right here who was doing the same thing. And essentially, 12 years later, you could potentially charge $50,000 for like one website.
Yeah. And if I knew a little bit more than I did, I probably wouldn't have taken me so long. But
right.
Probably. Well, the first couple of years of J2 were more like a part-time side hustle for both of us. And it wasn't until 2012 that I actually took it full time and like made it my job. I didn't make any money for like a year, but
wow. It's normally like that when you start out.
Yeah.
It's part of the grind.
So really, going from a $400 website to a $50,000 website would be more like 7-8 years, something like that.
7-8 years. Okay, that's even less time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
And if I had a bigger vision than I did back then, I think it may have been sooner. But
wow. So vision is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get further faster, I think. But your vision and your risk tolerance have to match. Back then too, though, I was broke with a ton of debt. And so my vision was kind of like, just get me out of that. And then once you get past that and you can kind of see what's possible. And I think it helps a lot learning from other people what's possible. So like I didn't have a whole lot of like people that I'd seen do something similar. So I didn't really have an idea of what was even possible. It was just kind of whatever you could come up with your own mind. So
you feel like if you would have seen like a marketing agency or something, knew somebody who owned a marketing agency, you felt like that would have expanded you?
Yeah, I think even listening to if I was listening to this podcast and I was 10 years younger, and hearing this podcast specifically, just knowing that's something that is even possible to do is helpful. And I think a lot of people are just not aware of what's even possible for them.
Yeah.
And I look at myself 5 years from now, I'm almost anticipating that I'm going to look back and think how small a vision I had for what was possible.
I remember I got to meet with your father. One of our meetings, we were standing outside, and he was telling me about the endeavor that you all have within Africa, and I was like, that's something. Like, how could you even? I couldn't fathom that. Like at that time, like I was like, I understood what he was doing, but like for me to personally like try to vision that, it wasn't even possible at that time. But by him sharing that information with me and letting me know what was possible, when other opportunities began to come my way that was like out of state, I entertained that conversation because I know that if Hugh could do this and Erik could do this over in Africa, well surely a few states away is doable.
Right. Yeah. It expands your vision a little bit. Yeah, and I think hopefully that's what people garner from your podcast is just learning what's available or is even possible for them. It could be bigger than what they're envisioning right now. It always is.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely the goal. You know, with starting out is like, hey, you know, you're an entrepreneur, especially with the photographer, video production, because that's what my background that I came from, and you know, I wanted to let people know what's possible, and because I had a limited belief, because I was doing music videos and I would charge anywhere from like $300 to $600, and $600 would be like at that time like my high ticket offer, and then I won this music video contest out in Atlanta with GT Films, and I was supposed to go and learn how to shoot a music video on a bigger set or whatnot, but I couldn't, I didn't have the money at the time to like, I called some artists and I kind of pitched it to them like, hey, we can go do this big set and everything out in Atlanta, but you got to fund it to get there. And that fell through. And I said, I called this manager and I say, I can't come. Could I get a mentorship? And I didn't even know what a mentorship was or where I even found the word at.
Right.
But I said, could I get a mentorship? And she's like, let me check. And he said, yeah. And we've been talking for like, I don't know, like 3 years now. He even went to Atlanta. But the biggest thing I got from him was as soon as I got on the phone with him, he was like, I just left a money bag, yo, in Black Youngster shoot. And he said, I just charged them $50,000 for a music video. And then he said, I just did some music videos for some local artists. And he didn't put a value to that, but I used my imagination. I said, well, if he charged them 50, he had to charge them at least $5,000 for a video. And he said, I did about 5 of those. And I was encouraged from that, because I'm only charging $600 for a music video. And here he is just telling me he charged $50,000. So my mind was expanded on. I was like, oh yeah, I could do this.
Yeah.
And then once I got on set with him, like he invited me to be on set, I got an opportunity to go to Atlanta from just networking and whatnot to do some business. I hit him up and I said, hey, I'm in Atlanta. He was like, okay. He said, well, pull up. He gave me an address. He said, pull up at this time. He didn't tell me what was going on or what it is. I didn't know what it was. When I came to the shoot, it was at this big mansion, foreign cars outside. I mean, it's just like some music video stuff.
Yeah.
You know, models. And then all the artist was like YFN Lucci, that's like, you know, Lil Wayne's daughter, boyfriend or whatever, and OMB Peasy, Young in the Ace, and some other people that I can't even think of who their name was. Big Fat something. I can't think of his name, but y'all out there in the world, y'all know who these people is. And so that really encouraged me to let me know it was possible. My energy was through the roof. You couldn't tell me nothing. I felt like I could, whatever I touched could turn to gold from then, you know.
That's cool.
So I hope this podcast does the same thing for everybody else, to let them know like it's possible.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Well, and I think that's cool that I think it's an important lesson too for people who've gone through that, you know, what you've gone through. And once you're to a point of success where you see somebody else where you were at, that you bring them through the same thing, right? And they feel on cloud 9 just like that guy did for you. I think that's an important lesson for a lot of entrepreneurs. I don't know if you'll ever feel like you're qualified to do that, but I don't ever feel like qualified to give my opinion or give somebody advice on something. But I think it's just a nice thing to do for those who are on just figuring it out and on their way up. So
definitely. So you didn't have. So what was it like growing up for you? Because like I never asked this question, but I would always thought that you all had like a family business and you always was like, you know, always been around business deals and so forth, and it kind of got into you from watching Hugh.
No, not really at all. Hugh, who's my dad, he actually joined J2 about 6 years ago, so I brought him on. My brother bought a business and stepped away from J2, and then I brought Hugh on as a partner about 6 years ago. He's been a salesman his entire life that I've known, you know, that I've been alive. He's been a salesman, one of the best that I know. And so he just knows a lot of people. He was just always in sales. So my mom was a music teacher. She just taught private lessons in music. So I woke up every day hearing the piano and the violin, and Yeah, so not a whole lot of like entrepreneurial businessy background. No.
I don't know. I feel like you kind of do though. Being that your father was in sales, like you had to have like caught him in action. You know, maybe
that mentality of
Yeah.
he's a major encourager and yeah, just being able to sell ice to an Eskimo, he's good at that. So
Okay, that's nice. So like as far as like sales, right, and then watching your father, like what would be some of the things that you felt like you learned or he instilled in you over the years that helped propel you and made you who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the sales aspect of business is one of the most important. I think your entrepreneur is always going to be the best salesman. You're going to sell your business better than anybody ever could. I think having that mentality, I think so. My dad, I think, had an ownership mindset on anything that he did. I think that might have been what I guess was more instilled into me was anything that you put your mind to, just take it and own it like it's yours and you're gonna succeed. And yeah, I think I just had some good opportunity to between graduating college and coming out of my own world to take the leap of risk and not take the guaranteed job that I had and a guaranteed salary and take the risk. And I got married, so I had a wife who worked a little bit so I could eat. So that helped a little bit, but yeah, you just got to take the opportunities you get and weigh the risk. Take more risk than most people are willing to take in order to succeed.
Like, why is it important for people to take risks?
Well, I don't think you're gonna get very far just doing what's comfortable. Growth and risk is very uncomfortable. You'll always be in a state of, if you're not somewhat uncomfortable with your growth and just like a little bit of underlying fear of like, oh man, I don't know if I could do this, and that's a bit of, like that is, I think, a necessary tool in being able to do anything successful on your own. I don't, unless you're just absolutely crazy and you're unaware of how risky things are. But no, I think you need to, taking steps to be an entrepreneur, to start your business, to grow your business to a level is always going to be uncomfortable. I mean, I'm even uncomfortable now with how much like we're trying to grow certain aspects of the business, right? It's like, it's uncertain. You just don't know what's always going to happen.
I mean, even with like all of your experience and starting each one, you still
but you still don't have control over everything. So you get experience to say this is likely what's going to happen. I know how to avoid some of the unnecessary risks, right? But there's still uncontrollable risks. We started the garage, and 6 months later the pandemic hit and we had to close. So there's just there's anything could happen when you start something. We put a lot of money into that, so it's like that's a huge risk. And now just having it's a little bit of PTSD at this point too, like thinking, man, I don't know if I want to open something else again like that and just have that, the risk that something happens like that again. So yeah, I mean, you always have risk and it's just going to be uncomfortable. I think if you're not uncomfortable, you're not pushing yourself.
How were you able to counteract the pandemic as in relates to the garage, the arcade?
We did really well for the first 6 months. So we just stored up savings. We had a savings goal. We wanted to be able to like fund like 3 months of expenses. And we just had built that up right when the pandemic hit, and we were closed for pretty much 3 months.
Wow.
So that was a little providential.
So that you brought up a good point, because the pandemic affected everybody. Everybody was affected by the pandemic, and like solo entrepreneurs, or however you want to call it, like they probably took some crazy hits too, because everybody's not wanting to work. Myself kind of being included. And the only way that I was really able to like survive is I had learned to play the stock market. I was already in it, but since I had a lot of time on my hands, I really got into it. and I bought up a bunch of stocks. Like I had some money and I just invested it, and I hit.
It's a good time to do it.
Yeah, and I made a substantial amount of money, and that money was able to,
sustain yourself during that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just found an opportunity. Yeah.
So
pay attention to those, but you took the risk, right? I'm sure there was a little bit of uncomfortability with like, is this the bottom, right? Is this are we only up from here? You don't know.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah,
I'm sure there were days where you were like, "What am I doing?"
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it was some, because it goes up, it goes down, and but what did they say? Nothing beats a failure, but a try. I had to take that risk. I didn't see anything else that I could really, done at that time. So. I mean, in the recession and the Great Depression and so forth, I mean, stuff is going to go back up eventually. It's not always going to stay down. You know what I mean? And if you believe that the economy is going to open back up, I took a risk. I took a risk and it paid off.
Yeah.
Nipsey Hussle says you can have it all. It's all about your risk.
Yeah.
So.
That's very true.
Yeah. Are you into the stock market?
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. More than I probably should be. I need to. I need to spend less time thinking about it and more time thinking about it. I'm not the greatest at it. I just like to dabble in it. So.
Got you. How do you balance like the stock market, J2, and then you got the arcade and like. I mean, you have a team, but I mean, you still have to check in with each one. So how do you balance all of that?
That, I think, is one of my greatest struggles, is trying to balance. And right now, especially, it feels like that's all I'm contemplating is what is the balance, right? And just trying to find, and I don't know if I'll ever find the perfect balance. And then I'm always adding something else, right? And so I'm getting very much to the point now where I'm saying no to a lot more opportunities because I don't want to throw away the ones that I've been working at, right? I don't want to be to the detriment of other things. So that's I think every entrepreneur's struggle is some level of balance, either with their specific job and their family and their, social life, or, all the different businesses. If you focus too much on one, you're not focusing on another. So I don't know if there's an answer to that one.
How do you balance out your family life with being an entrepreneur, like making sure your wife and your kids get enough time, and then also making sure the business gets ample enough time so it can flourish and grow to maintain your family?
Yeah, I mean, my priority is my family. I think that's a biblical thing too. And so setting boundaries of like, hey, this is what family life is going to look like, and everything else has got to fit around that. So,
what about in regards to like the Bible and like, because it's like it's certain principles that if you follow, whether you saved or not, however you want to call it, it'll work. Just like you jump off this building, you're not gonna go up, you're gonna go down, because that's a principle, that's a law, right? So how do you incorporate that within, like, I don't want to say business, let's just say business and like in business dealing, how do you incorporate that?
I think the ethics side of things. I think in business there's a lot of opportunities to do things not ethically or that benefit you over somebody else, especially when you get into like partnerships and business transactions. There's times where you can benefit yourself over somebody else, and I think that's a pretty normal mindset in this world. And I think if you have the proper principles and you use biblical ethics, like you stop and say, no, my integrity and character is more important than my financial gain. So just being able to live with yourself, live with God, not worry that something you did borderline illegal or unethical is going to come back and haunt you later, that's definitely a refreshing state of mind.
Got you. How do you stay motivated? Like what gets you going? Like, I'm fired up. Let's get to it. I'm ready. What gets you like that?
Figuring out what motivates what motivates you personally, and trying to just feed that all the time. So finding the things that tear you down, the things that really just get you like, oh, I hate doing this. Like 20% of what you do has got to be that, right? You got to do stuff you just don't want to do. Mm-hmm. But the more you can offload that somehow, and the more you can onboard things that you really enjoy doing, then it's just going to be natural.
Sounds like outsourcing.
Yeah. I mean, like the simplest example for me was I'd come home, we had a small little yard in our first house, and I need to mow the grass. So demotivating. I'd come home and I'd just be like, oh no, I gotta mow the grass. And that's time I don't get to spend with my family. I gotta go do that. Oh, and then it rains. Then I can't mow that day. Then it gets lost. It's the simplest thing, but it really demotivated me every time I came home and had to think about that. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna spend $200 a month and hire somebody to mow my lawn. So now not only do I come home and not get demotivated, I come home and I see the yard mowed and I'm like, that's so nice.
Right.
I just like, now I come in with a good spirit and I'm like happy and get to play with the kids, right? So it's figuring out what are those things that trigger some negativity in you or whatever it is. You're like, I just need to get that off my plate because it just bogs me down. And then find the things that you get really excited about and try and make that your first thing you do.
What would you say to an entrepreneur that's struggling within like doing stuff like that's used to like doing it themselves, but realizing that, look, I have to do what I'm strong at, and then I'll just pay somebody to do that so that I can, what would you say?
And you can't always pay, not every, I can't afford to outsource everything I'd like to outsource.
Right.
And nobody can, right? I would say focus on your big picture. Remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing. You should have a why you're doing what you're doing, right? And then trying to intentionally reward yourself with those, doing the things you really enjoy doing, maybe first and last, and then shove that crap in the middle you don't want to do.
Gotcha.
So,
well, that brings me to my next question. What is your why? Like, why do you do what you do?
I do it for my family, the legacy and the being able to provide for them. That's really at the end of it, why I do what I do. And then I enjoy bringing value to other people's lives through some of the services that our companies offer. So it's just fun, just enjoyable to do that and be in community and help people in whatever way. So, yeah.
What does what when you say legacy, what do you mean by like legacy?
It's like family legacy and heritage, I guess. Just like passing stuff on to my kids to be able to carry the torch, I guess.
Why is ownership so important?
Ownership, why is that so important? I don't know if it's absolutely important. I think ownership mentality is really important.
So what's the difference between ownership mentality versus like actual ownership in a company?
Well, I mean, in ownership in a company, obviously you're going to have some potential financial long-term benefit from that, right? So if you're building something up and it's becoming greater in value, you're building up wealth for yourself, right? Ownership mentality, I think, is a good thing to have, and I think everybody has control over it, even if you don't necessarily own something or can't necessarily own something that easily. I think that ownership mentality makes the best type of team member. So somebody who has that passion to do it well just because they want to do it well, because they believe they should, not just because they have to, or it's not just a job. Like they really want it. They want to be what they create. They want it to be good for themselves, not even if they own it. But that kind of a mentality, I think, gets you a long ways.
So how does one develop an ownership mentality when starting out?
I think it would be setting a standard of your work for yourself and not for others. not and for yourself or for God, like, hey, this is what you've given me the ability to do, and I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability, for either yourself or for God, and not to just do it for somebody else. So you're not there trying to impress somebody else. You set a high standard for yourself, and you're trying to match that.
So when you talk about wealth, what does wealth mean to you?
Couple things. I guess wealth means freedom and time. Being able to choose what you want to do with your time that you have on earth. And I think money helps do that in a lot of ways. Helps you have more control over your time. And then relationship. I'd rather die broke and have 1,000 people at my funeral than die rich with nobody there.
Wow. I so often think about that when I go to funerals, and I see them packed, and I said, well, in order to have a packed funeral like this, you have to be a very impactful person, like touch people in so many ways, and that's what I want. I want to touch people in a lot of ways. Like, money is cool; it can open up a lot of doors or whatever you want to call it, but ultimately, like, when you die or when you leave here, what are people going to say about you?
Yeah.
And I mean, personally, I want people to, say that he said something and it caused my life to change, or I saw the podcast and it inspired me to believe in myself, and now I'm a millionaire. Like, those are examples of like things that I want people to say. Like, he showed me love when nobody else showed me love. But I realized in order for that to take place, then I have to give of myself on a continually basis, and
right.
So.
Yeah, that's a good mentality on wealth and legacy.
Yeah, I have to change the name of the podcast to Wealth and Legacy.
No, I like what it is. So cool. I think I shared one of the things I've been sharing a lot with people, and it's something I think I already touched on, which is just like the importance of relationships. Like, if I were to attribute most of my success to one thing, I would say it's relationships, either with colleagues or people who, clients or team members. Like, the relationships are everything to the success.
When it comes to all of the businesses that you have started, all of them obviously are like all different, but in starting those businesses, was it like the same process from all, like, if I started J2 and then so the rest of them was easy because based off this business model or so forth, or it does not work?
I think
like
they're
that?
all different business models. I think there's definitely a lot of similarities of things you go through to figure out if it's a legitimately good business idea. I mean, you're just doing market research to figure out, is this what people actually want, right? What I'm offering, is this what people want to buy? What's it going to take to get this going? What's the minimum viable product? Like, how basic can I start this to try it out and get some sales and get some customer feedback and some of that stuff, and then how do I set this up so it sustains itself financially? So yeah, it's a pretty similar process, I would say, but all the business models are fairly different. So
what's some of the, and this will be my last question, what's some of the ways that when starting out individuals can start to do market research, who's not familiar with that, or how to go about doing it?
I think depending on what it is, but it's very uncommon for someone to start something completely new and different, like that no one's done. So it's going out and seeing what other people are doing similarly. Going talking to other video guys. Like for the arcade bar, I went and visited and talked to 5 or 6 other arcade bars in the nation, like in the Midwest, Chicago, Indy, Nashville, different places like that. Just called them up, went and visited them, so, just see what they did, see, one of them I just sat at all day and just like counted people to see how many people came, right? The other one gave me some financial feedback, and so it's just picking people's brains on what they've done. I think is a great way to do market research. Sell it, if you create a product or a small service, just trying to sell it and then doing it on the cheap and getting feedback as part of your payment, right? So.
Wow. And when you call up the business owners, they was open and receptive to having you.
Some of them were not at all.
Okay.
One of them gave me way too much information. I was like, I didn't need you to send me your profit and loss statements. Like, wow. And this other guy's like, leave me alone. So you get the whole gamut.
So did you have like a certain, I probably just last question. Did you have like a certain strategy in calling them? And then like the ones that was nasty, did you get discouraged? Like, man, I'm not calling nobody else. Like,
no, I think I anticipated nobody really being willing to share much. And so I was just kind of just trying to get a tiny bit of feedback. Would you be willing to give me any feedback? I'm looking to start this. And I understood the relationship. Like, I tried to let them know where I was located, so I'm not like, hey, I'm looking to start one in your neighborhood and compete with you, right? I talked like a guy in Nashville. I had said, hey, I'm looking to start one up here in South Bend, Indiana. I'm just trying to learn a little bit more before I do it. Would you be willing to share anything? And he's like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. Same thing with guy in Indy. Now, Indy's a few hours away, so maybe they felt like it was they didn't want to, like, help. But, so, I don't know.
All right, well, that's all the time we have, man. We truly appreciate you for stopping by on the What's Your Hustle podcast. And if there's anything that we can do to be a blessing to you and all of your businesses that you have, we would love to bless you.
Yeah, I appreciate the time, and it's fun chatting with you, Cory.
All right.